The Firebird's Rebirth. Deep within the heart of the Silver Valley, the legend of the Firebird was more than just a bedtime story. For Alara, it was a persistent whisper in the wind. While the rest of the village slept under the pale moonlight, she stood at the forest's edge, watching a strange, golden glow dance between the ancient cedar trees. The light led her to a clearing where the air felt unseasonably warm. There, caught in the thorns of a wild rose bush, was a feather that pulsed like a heartbeat. It wasn't made of fire, but it carried the heat of a summer afternoon. As Alara touched it, the forest fell silent, acknowledging her discovery. Seeking answers, Alara hurried to the outskirts of town to find Silas, the village's keeper of forgotten things. The old man peered through his spectacles, his breath hitching as he saw the feather. He knew this wasn't just a bird's passing. The Firebird was returning, and it was choosing Alara to witness its rebirth. As the first light of dawn touched the village, a strange chill settled over the valley.
Look at the roofs!
The warmth Alara felt from the feather was fading, and the golden dust she followed began to dim. She realized the Firebird wasn't just a legend passing through. It was losing its light, and the village's hearts were growing cold in sympathy. Kale stopped Alara at the gate, his face etched with worry. He had seen the frost creeping from the forest and feared a dark omen. But when Alara showed him the feather, the heat radiating from it convinced him. He couldn't let her go alone into the deepening cold of the Whispering Woods to find the source. The duo ventured deeper than any villager had dared in years. The trees seemed to lean inward, their branches heavy with silver ice that didn't melt despite the morning sun. Alara used the feather like a compass. The closer they got to the heart of the woods, the brighter and hotter the golden quill became. The trail of golden dust led them to the center of a great frozen lake. In the middle of the ice sat a massive, ancient nest made of silver branches. The air here was so cold it stung their skin, but the feather in Alara's hand began to pulse with a rhythmic, intense heat that kept the frost at bay. Inside the nest lay the Firebird, but it was not the majestic creature of the legends. Its flames were dim, flickering like a dying candle, and its feathers had turned to gray ash. The bird looked exhausted, its head resting weakly on the silver wood. Alara realized the bird wasn't just old. It was fading because the world had forgotten how to hope. As Alara pressed the glowing feather back against the bird's wing, a small spark jumped between them. The bird let out a low, melodic hum that vibrated through the ice beneath them. Kale reached out, offering his own strength. And for a moment, the three of them were connected by a faint golden thread of light. But the recovery was interrupted. The frost wasn't just weather. It was a shadow born from the village's collective doubt. A cold, dark mist began to swirl around the nest, trying to snuff out the Firebird's returning spark. Alara realized that to save the bird, they had to protect its hope from the darkness of the world. The shadow grew stronger, feeding on their fear. Kale's spear was useless against the mist, and the ice beneath them began to groan and crack. Alara knew that physical strength wasn't the answer. She closed her eyes, and began to hum a melody her mother used to sing, a song of spring and the first morning light. The song acted like a shield. As the melody filled the air, the golden feather merged completely with the bird's chest. The firebird's eyes snapped open, no longer dull, but burning with a fierce protective light. The shadow recoiled, unable to withstand the sound of a human heart that still believed in the impossible. The firebird let out a piercing, beautiful cry that shattered the remaining shadows like glass. As its wings beat against the cold air, waves of heat rolled across the lake, melting the silver ice and turning the frozen wasteland back into clear blue water. The winter of doubt was finally breaking, replaced by the warmth of a new beginning. With the shadows gone, the forest breathed again. The air was filled with the scent of pine and blooming flowers. Kale looked at Alara, realizing that her courage had done what no soldier could ever achieve. They weren't just returning to their village, they were bringing the spring back with them, led by the golden light of the myth itself. As they approached the village gates, the frost began to retreat from the stone walls. The villagers, who had been huddled in fear, started to come outside, drawn by the incredible warmth radiating from the sky. They looked up to see their own legends coming to life, chasing away the cold that had settled in their hearts for so long. The village square transformed into a place of celebration. People who had shuttered their windows against the frost now threw them open, letting the firebird's warmth spill into their homes. Alara stood at the center, no longer just a girl with a curious mind, but the bridge between the village and the magic they had nearly lost. Silas explained that the firebird's return meant more than just the end of a cold snap. It meant the connection to the ancient world was restored. The shadow of doubt had been defeated by a simple song and a brave heart. He gave Alara a small leather cord so she could wear the feather as a reminder of her journey. Kale and Alara watched as the firebird took one last sweep over the valley before heading toward the highest peaks. They knew it would always be there, watching over the Silver Valley as long as someone remembered to hope. The fear that once divided the villagers was replaced by a shared secret and a newfound warmth. The library, once a place of dusty silence and forgotten dreams, was now filled with curious young faces. Silas and Alara spent the evening recording the true account of the firebird's journey. They realized that stories were the lifeblood of the valley, and as long as they were told with truth and heart, the cold shadows would never return. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the trio looked out over their home. The village was alive with light and laughter, a stark contrast to the frozen silence of before. Alara touched the feather charm, feeling its warmth. They had changed the world not with magic alone, but with the simple human courage to believe in the light.